I got a sense of dusty sand, man-made structures there. Yeah, that felt like I got a sense of even like disciples. Like this is kind of like something holy happened here in the past.
And I wrote here that this feels like a huge amount of energy here. This feels like a farming of energy, and this feels like something to do with vacuum. It feels like the energy is filtered through a process and then I can't read that word. Compressed into a semi-solid form. Feels like there's magnetically charged plates that spin.
Wow. I started with a guy sitting in a chair getting some kind of spirit communication with a vibrational energy. He feels sedated, near sleep, in and out of consciousness in an altered state.
I keep seeing someone frozen in a block of ice, suspended in ice. If not actual ice, suspended in time.
The target is referenced in Enoch. First, as Enoch is being taken on a tour of the underworld. Okay? This target is like the portal to the underworld.
Hi, crypto fans. Dennis Nappy II here, and we have a real treat. We're joined by Ras Ben. He is an author, he's an explorer, he's a researcher, wealth of information out there. And we worked a target based on some of his data, some of his research. We did an internal debrief a few weeks ago, looking at something that ties into the mounds and the technology behind them, tied into ancestry and spiritual energy. Fascinating target, one of the more in-depth and fun woo-woo targets that we've worked. We're going to do a little debrief here with Ras so he can provide our viewers with some feedback. I have Daz, Dick, and Naeem on the line. Edward Reardon will be joining us just shortly. I'm going to start talking with Ras here real quick. First of all, Ras, how are you, sir?
Thankful. Glad to be a part of this.
Wonderful to have you here. I'm excited to speak with you and kind of pick your brain a little bit and compare it to our viewers' data. Do you want to just give us a quick background about yourself, and then a little bit about the target that we worked for you?
Okay, well, I'm a 40-year student of history, mystery, and prophecy. Got a couple of books there's two that's most related to this research y'all are conducting. One book is called Great Mystery Philadelphia, where I guess you could say you look at the time manipulation, the manipulation of historic and prophetic timelines, you know. But a big part of that is, I guess, anchoring timelines on the Earth grid, the magnetic fields of the Earth, and then that brings in a more indigenous ancient technology, that of mound building. Most urban cities are, at least in the United States, built atop of mound complexes, you know? And you're right. I think we talked about it prior to coming on, but there is this tradition, this legacy of conquering cultures, building their power bases on top of prior cultures' power bases, and all of these things are occurring on the mounds, you know. And there are dimensions of spiritual, ancestral technology tied in with the mounds. You know, they are sepulchral. Ancestors are built in them. Buried in them, much like how pyramids are built and might be used sepulcrally, you know. So free your mound and your mind will follow. That's the book that kind of penetrates that research, you know.
That's fascinating. Now, can you explain a little bit about what that technology is, that spirit technology, how it's tied to the mound?
Well, we would say that the mounds were a spiritual technology. Technology is a use of a tool,
Mhm.
you know, the study of use of tools. So the mounds were a tool to help indigenous societies tap into like the three realms of what we would say spiritual awareness.
Mhm.
Earth, nature, earth magnetic field, earth grid, because mounds were usually placed in alignment with ley lines or vortex centers on the planet.
Mhm.
Mounds would connect you with the heavens, the celestial realm, because they usually align the mounds with some type of astronomical event, either an equinox or a solstice, or maybe they mirrored constellations, you know, or some phenomena would occur with a constellation at the mound on a certain date, you know, and mounds were sepulchral, so they would connect you with your ancestries.
So they would help open up, I guess, to the spirit realms, to these other.
Oh, yeah, you could connect with all three of those realms: ancestral, nature, celestial.
So I guess I don't know if similar is the right word, but maybe the same idea of maybe like ingesting a psychedelic, it opens your mind to a different frequency to tap into a different realm. These mounds have a similar technology that kind of expands your awareness into a different area.
Well, I would even say more than likely ingesting psychedelics at the mounds.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Okay. Yeah, would amplify it, the signal.
it would, you would plug in,
Yeah.
be able to tap in.
Got it.
Three realms of spirit:
Mm-hmm.
ancestral, natural, celestial.
Mm-hmm.
When I say natural, like the earth,
Right.
you know, elements of the earth, you know.
Right. And
Roz,
then
are we talking about connections to previous civilizations? Are you like ancient, like times before when there was a whole civilization here and then the earth was wiped clean and a new one had to spring
And
up? Is that your view of this?
that's a great question. And because talking about mounds and dating them is so complex, because mounds are a global phenomena. You do find them all over the world. And you see, I would definitely say some mounds appear antediluvian and pre-flood,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know? So more often than not, when I'm speaking about mound technology, I try to limit my conversation to post-diluvial mounds of North America.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so current civilization. I've been actually told, and Daz, you and I did pyramid target for Courtney Brown, published that years ago, and some of my data hinted at ley lines and
Mm-hmm.
connections to other parts of the planet and space. And I was flat out told by someone, that's forbidden knowledge. Be careful what you put out about that.
Wow.
Yeah, that's one of the big secrets. So that's
Well,
my limited interaction with this.
well, I will say this, kind of in alignment with that. The second target that I gave you, well, really it was the one target that I gave you, but I think it's the second target you explored.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons why I gave you that target is because it really seems like it is the most secretive place on planet Earth. It's it's just so much shrouded about it. And yeah, I was really interested to just see, like, wow, what would you all be able to penetrate and be able to explore and gain information about it.
And that's for Mount Rwenzuri, correct?
Mount Rwenzuri, yes.
Rwenzuri. Okay.
Mount Rwenzuri, yes.
And they definitely pulled back data from that. And I think now might be a good time for us to look at some of that data if you're ready, Ross.
All right.
Okay. Why don't we start with Daz? I'm going to embarrass him for a minute because today happens to be his birthday. So let's let Daz
Hey, can you show us the tasking document first?
Yeah, let me pull it
So
up for a minute.
So
While
we're
Daz
clear
gets his
what that
stuff
is.
ready.
Everybody knows what we're looking at.
All right, let me pull it back up.
Happy birthday, Daz.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Daz is 35 today.
All right.
I'm a very young 51.
There you go.
Happy to still be here.
I was going to say, if Daz is 35, I am too.
We all are. All right, here it comes. All right, the tasking document's opening now. We'll revisit that tasking, and then Raj, you can see this is, and again, just to recap. So with remote viewing, all our viewers are given is an eight digit target ID number, and that's all they know about the target is that number. It's not until after they submit their sessions and we agree, hey, we're not going to retask you to go look at anything else, that we then reveal what the target is to them. So they didn't know anything other than these numbers here. I'm going to go ahead and share what our tasking document was here. So this is what we gave them after the sessions were done, but this is the intent behind the tasking. Okay, so it was Mount Rwenzuri, Mountains of the Moon, and it gave the location in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The moment of timeline modification event. Describe the ancient temple on this mountain range, what happened there, and how that direct the timeline we are on now, and whose temple was it. And then the tasker just gave a brief background information on it to help kind of bring the viewers into it. And that's so that's the tasking. Anybody have any questions on that before we move into Daz's data? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and stop that share. And we're going to give Daz the screen, and he's going to go through his session. And Roz, feel free to interrupt with any questions or comments you have on it.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll skirt through this pretty fast if I can. Okay, so yeah, we were blind to this, and I started off with this initial sketch or ideogram here, and it came up with the words of that this target was expansive, it was dark, and it had an element of space to it. The second sketch here showed that there was definitely an energy involved, and this energy was complex, volatile, and it was exotic energy. Then tried to elaborate a bit more on this with this even more in-depth sketch here, and that gave me the impression I had to write here of whoa. And I tried to verbalize it here, so I'll read my words. So I said, okay, let me try to verbalize this. This feels like a connection between the very large and the small, the vastness of unlimited space and the smallness of the smallest particles. It feels as though I'm feeling a process whereby small, minute particles are being sucked or attracted through a funnel. And then I had the guess here of time and space. And then I tried to draw what I was kind of visualizing. And it felt almost like some kind of strange wormhole type situation that was sucking or moving time and space through dimensions. I couldn't really understand what I was seeing here, but these are the little particles that were moving through this kind of vast distance of time and space and dimensions. And I wrote here that this feels like a huge amount of energy here. This feels like a farming of energy, and this feels like something to do with vacuum. It feels like the energy is filtered through a process and then, I can't read that word, compressed into a semi-solid form. It feels like there's magnetically charged plates that spin.
Wow.
Then another sketch here, and this sketch has 3 components. So this has A, B, and C, and the A is energy, and it's vast and it's compressed. B is life, so there were people there at the target, and C indicates that there were structures there, and the structures were hard, solid, gray, silver, egg-shaped, and I felt that they were to do with travel and dimensions. The energy is in phases within the structure, and it phases in and out of physicality. So sometimes it felt like the structures were real and physical, and sometimes it felt like they moved in dimensions and they weren't. And I wrote there at the bottom, it's as if the energy is alive. Then I moved to sketch the target from in front of the target, and I had this downward movement of energy, and it had some kind of dimensional motion to it as well, and it feels like it appeared from nowhere. And then I felt like I had this solid gray-white reflective moving thing there, which, to be honest, looks like a traditional UFO type craft. And I went a bit more in depth here, and I felt that the location was code. It was a remote location. It was a land, felt a bit hostile, quiet, felt like it was secret and had a science feel to it. And as you can see here, I got these mountain ranges here with water in front of it. and it felt like this UFO. All I can say is it's like a UFO type object moved downwards into the mountain range, and so it came from above and moved downwards. So I tried to describe that object, and it didn't feel symmetrical, but it did feel curved and rounded and squashed slightly. Felt smooth to the touch, metallic, 30 to 100 feet in size, and it felt like it had 3 life forms inside of it. Felt like it was to do with transport work and a workhorse type craft, and it had many different uses. And the object had a field around it, and so I meant, that's an energy field, and it extended around about 30 feet outside of the object itself. And it had a pulling attraction feel to this, a heavy feel. So I tried to draw it here in a bit more. So there's the field around it, the bubble of energy. And the energy of bubble felt like it ionized or it fizzed the air within the proximity of it. And it felt like it was something to do with gravity, time, space, and dimensions. And anything within that bubble was compromised in time and space and dimensions as well. And it was all to do with vibrations and frequencies. So again, there's a bit more of a sketch here, and this is just showing how it moved. It had a forwards momentum, which was like an elastic band kind of feeling. So it almost like stretched where it wanted to go, and then the back end of the elastic band pinged itself towards where it wanted to move to.
Daz, and I think we talked about this during our last debrief, is that almost sounds like some of the anti-gravity tech that Bob Lazar described from Area 51.
Yes,
it creates that field around it, and it pulls the craft.
Yeah. And I felt like this object moved downwards in a vertical movement, so it descended down into a hole or cavern within this rocky kind of mountainous region, and the region was crested on all sides by rocky cliffs, and it was very remote. And then when it moved downwards, I felt like it actually went down into almost like a cavern system that actually existed within the rocks there, and inside it felt like it was smooth and dome shaped or bell shaped. Felt very large. They had some ground level tunnels here, which you can see 3 of them here, and they went off in different angles. So it felt like it was not just one cavern, but then it extended to other caverns as well. And I tried to draw what this would have been like within the mountain range. So here's the object, and it's a scale in size. It was very small against the mountain range, and it would go in through a hole, and then there would be this tunnel system underneath the mountain itself. So it would be underground. And I felt like this had to do with something like science and research kind of feel to it. And that's pretty much it from what I got on there on that one.
Okay, thanks, Daz. Raz, any comments? Anything that stands out for you on that?
Well, a lot. Yeah, I don't know. I have like I said, a little debrief. I don't know if you want me to share. If maybe everyone should do their sharing.
Okay,
and I do that. But I will say, I am absolutely amazed. There's a lot of synchronicities.
Good.
And I hope I remember them all when I go through the debrief.
All right. Thanks.
But I think they'll be obvious.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Nice job, Daz. Let's move over to Naeem, if you're ready to go.
So I did 2 sessions on this target. So yeah, my first session was started with I see a structure. It looks like it's like landing. I see something coming down from above. My next impressions were land, dirt, like a mountain, peaking land features, dusty, particulate land. And then I see something that's like a space, like within this area, there's like an enclosed space that feels more smoothed out. Like a room, kind of like within the land feature here. So this was my site sketch here, just arranging everything. Let's see if I can rotate that. Okay, that was a bad idea. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, this is my site sketch. Land feature, something inside, some stuff in the air. So looking at the land, I got the sense that this is like a holy land, and it feels more like deserted. I got a sense of dusty sand, man-made structures there. Yeah, that felt like, I got a sense of even like disciples. Like this is kind of like something holy happened here in the past. And this was my color. I did a little color version of it here. The next visual I had was in the air. I saw this thing, and this reminded me of it looked like a seed. It's like a curved, round, egg-shaped pod thing, and I see it come down, and I drew a color version of it here. This had like carvings on it on the side, so that was weird. That felt like a capsule, container or a capsule that comes down. I see
Sounds
this
like
structure
Kecksburg too. Remember, we were comparing that to the Kecksburg.
Yeah, no, I didn't even know about the Kecksburg thing, but I saw it on the CryptoViewing. You guys did that interview, and when I saw that thing, I thought of this thing I drew. I was like, wow, that looks
It's almost identical to it. Yeah,
very similar to that. Yeah,
Mhm.
so
What's
that was interesting.
Kecksburg,
This was something I saw in the air. Oh, the Kecksburg. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. What Naeem drew here is what he saw related to this target, but the Kecksburg UFO sighting over here in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. Daz, what year was that? Kecksburg? I don't remember.
Wasn't it something like 68 or something?
Yeah, I think it was back in '68. The craft they described was almost identical to what Naeem drew back in the late '60s. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then so the next thing I see is this structure, and this looks like something almost out of like an old sci-fi movie, like almost like what they want the lunar lander to look like tripod type legs, like a rounded donut shape near the bottom, rubber, mechanical, and I get a sense of lift landing with that. I get like levitate, almost like an anti-gravity or maglev type technology involved with it. Looking again, I see like a positioning, like it's trying to find the right spot to come down. Like this spot is a special spot. I see them like aligning like that. I see this over and over again, them trying to touch down at a certain spot. I see a structure is floating above the surface. I get a sense of positioning, coordination, landing ellipse. Yeah. The next thing this is where things got kind of weird. Here I see guys in like full suits, like full covering suits, and I hear like a radio transmission, like someone these guys have communication, and I get a sense of sort, fulfill, calibration, focused plan. These guys are interacting with some kind of structures here. They're lined up in a row. So, I'm probing into what this is, and I get a sense of they're in like an arranged, coordinated group. They're almost like robots, like they're very drone-like, and they're doing some very scientific, they're implementing something that's very regulated and scientific. And so, I went to look at one of these, the life there, and I get the sense that these guys have a air seal, and they're all about contamination. So reproduce, molecular science, and something about operations and incisions. So yeah, and then I see again this just dust kicking up everywhere as this downward thrust, something comes down to touch down. So that was my first session. And then so I did another one on this, and again, this one starts with what looks like a tripod type kind of like what I saw before, just sitting there. Again, I see the life, and these guys have like kind of like a spandex suit that they wear to cover them. And I wrote it kind of like what Buzz Lightyear wears under a suit. Like he's got the little things that look like headphones under there, the little purple thing that he wears. Like these guys have that on, something like that on. And I get like experiment. These guys are like scientists. Replicate and duplicate, cell sequence, split division, biological entity. And I get like this guy has like the Darth Vader breathing. Like they're not breathing air. Whatever they have over their mouth is they're breathing. They can't breathe the air or something. They're meticulous, attention to detail. They're calm and detached, and they're not affected. And they feel odd, alien to me. And I get what they're about, their motivation. I get sequence, replicate, DNA, function, codons, and replicants. And so I did a movement here to like reposition my focus on the land. Like why are they interested in the land? And I got that it's sacred to them. There's like a manifest that they're following, and judicial. Like this is almost like an order, like they have to do this. and what the land is in significance to them is it has to do with the beginning or the origin, the seed, historical participants. So they've done something here in the past, and it's like they're coming back to this spot. And I did a movement order, which is to like move to the optimal position for this tasking. So like whatever the tasking is, what's going to give the best answer. And here I got like an invasion, an insurrection, a takeover. They seed, splice, integrate, manipulate, and blend to blur the lines and get the upper hand. And it had to do with genetic stock and it being palatable to them.
What do you mean by palatable? Yeah. Can you explain that?
Like this is compatible with them. Like I got the sense that they're coming back. Something historical happened, and for whatever reason, this is the genetic stock that's compatible or palatable. Yeah.
Okay.
They're organized, manipulative, and they're about integrating with the species. And it feels like they plant, inject, or seed. Seed, yeah. And I get that they might still be monitoring this area. It's sacred, and they may even still be watching it. They attack, invade, and manipulate. They're very scientific. They inject and splice and integrate. And I get preservation. So it might be a DNA preservation thing. Polymerase chain. And I had an AOL of like Morgellons. Like that's that disease where people say they have like wires and little microchips and stuff growing out of their skin. So maybe might be related to this, what they're doing with what these guys might have been doing with their genetic experiments. I get splice, genetic, control, integrate, incognito. So yeah, on the low about this. Duplicate. They're trying to duplicate the life force. Yeah, I felt like they have a low power, a dwindling life force, and they're trying to duplicate that and preserve a lost strain in the human genome. And I got here historical origin, past history, a land grab, an invasion. And I got Holy Land, like Africa, Middle East, planted, origin, deserted. And then this was the last thing I saw. I saw one of these guys in the spandex, and he's like doing a surgery, and I get like medical insert, inject, implement, insert genome, species preservation. And I wrote, I see a life in protective gear, medical suit, scrubs, and someone's on a table and they're doing a medical operation. So yeah, that was my data on that one.
Reminds me of the Anunnaki creation myths where they're coming into the garden and manipulating. Really great session. Raz, any commentary on that?
Again, I would just say there is a lot of synchronicities from what I've obtained, and I think it'll be obvious in the sharing that I have.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Naeem, great job again. That's fascinating data. I feel like we're kind of going deeper and deeper into this thread now. Let's move on to Dick Allgaier and take a look at his data on this, if you're ready, Dick.
All right, I'm here. I'm ready to go. I did 2 quick sessions, so we'll start with number 1. Cool down imagery. I see a person and a clock. Then I get fine lines. I'm seeing like blood vessels, tiny blood vessels magnified in eyes, and a very precise tool like a medical device, a stent or a probe. And a lot of numbers, electronic numbers moving, some reading on a monitor. They're changing every half second. There's a display case with fine wood, well crafted, very neat, track lighting. You got a bookcase there, Roz? Bookshelves and documents. And now this gets weird. I said, this is weird as shit. I see a person walking through a wall or a bookcase, like in the Field of Dreams. Remember that baseball movie where they walked into the corn and disappeared? I saw somebody do that. So I have to pause. I have to put this down to get rid of it. I'm asking, is this a supernatural woo-woo target? People going into another dimension, a lot of spiritual stuff. A magical bookcase, a hole to another place. low-level probes, a spectral form, vaporous like a ghost. And I keep getting the bookshelves. Then I get a labyrinthian structure down here, voices, footsteps, old stone, inside a complex. Again with the bookshelves, and then people high up looking down inside a structure. So I got a lot of big structural stuff. A spectral figure inside a very complex, but the form was ephemeral. All right, so again, there's an energy form that changes shapes and floats like a ghost. A passageway. This feels like a haunted library. I'm drawn down a hall of records, like trying to catch a ghostly image moving away. Keep seeing that. This appears to be a gray smudge. I can't see. There's like a hole in reality. It's translucent and opaque at the same time. Laughter has a sense of humor. Hard to see in this dimension. Spirit energy, ectoplasm, vibrational frequency, and then a large structure. Now I'm seeing rows and rows of neatly stacked, like sheaves, like harvested vegetation being cured. Or I think there was something to do with this target, with like bodies were arranged a certain way. There were a lot of bodies neatly laid out. I got a sense of harvest or storage.
We talked about in the feedback that we found, I think it was, Raz, I think you had some stuff about Thomas Jefferson's plantation and the mounds that were on there they excavated.
Yeah.
They found that the bodies were in the similar positions, facing the same direction, and they had particular metals on them or whatever. And we thought maybe that was a tie into that.
Okay, now I'm seeing people moving in a sort of dance while others watch. This is like a pagan ceremony or ritual. There's approval from the onlookers. There's grunts and shouts. There's sexual overtones. This feels very old, like this was some sort of dance ritual that went on in the past. Then I see a guy, Edwardian, with tailored clothes, but old, the stiff collared type of, they wore a hat, high English, high society. And then I said, this target feels populated by spirits, entities, other dimensional beings, people have passed over. So that's my first pass, and I felt I needed more work. So let me go to the next session. And I started with a guy sitting in a chair, getting some kind of spirit communication with a vibrational energy. He feels sedated, near sleep, in and out of consciousness in an altered state. Now I see a place with candles, shrines, altars, crystals. It's dim and old. It's a sanctuary, a place of spells and incantations, an inner sanctum. I hear monk sounds, droning chants. Dreams, a place where dreams are caused and used for a purpose. And I got Latin sounds.
Dick, if you're on your second page, we're only seeing the first page still.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Let me restart. I moved the... Okay, so there was the chair. There was the altar.
There we go.
Shrines, crystals, candles. A very religious place. And I said, a place where dreams are caused.
Dreams are caused.
That slide.
Yeah,
That's important.
Dreams.
That's important.
That's okay. This is the place where dreams are caused and used for a purpose. Okay, now I'm seeing a place where a great army was assembled. This feels like old time. They march in formation with like shields and swords. They're valiant. Some are great warriors. Some are frightened boys, and they're experiencing physical death. There's a clash. There's great energy release. Soul energy is like spiritual fertilizer. Ooh. There is a great upheaval. Now here we have land, and there's the mound in the background. But people are on the move. There's an exodus. Some die along the way. There's hardship, and the strong survive. So I had a movement of people. Now I see a scroll, an old document, yellowed with age, translated from cuneiform, So there was something in cuneiform that was transcribed into a, at the time, modern document, but now it's an old yellow document. So the records through time type of thing.
Yes.
A long scroll, an official document. People have to sign it, very solemn. It's ceremonial. Officiate, potentate, affix, affirm, sequential, secret, the bonds. There's a ceremony. Things are exchanged and acknowledged. These are not friends. They do this with caution, but out of necessity, like an uneasy truth. This is like the old blockchain, old agreements and contracts. Clang, gong, sound of a bell, people assemble, common folk, superstition, belief reinforced. Okay, so that's, I had no idea what this was, but a lot of interesting data. So.
There's a lot of synchronicities.
Dad, that sounds similar to some of the data you brought back for me too on that target we just worked. Interesting. Okay, Dick, thank you. There's a lot there. All right, last but certainly not least, Edward Reardon. Edward, let's take a look at what you have and see how much deeper we go into this.
Sounds good. Raz, it's a pleasure to meet you. A pleasure to work with you, man.
Yes.
Your pleasure.
Give thanks.
Okay. This was a bit ago when we did this one. All right. So this is the first thing I saw here was this person here. And there's something very liquid or fluid feel, like touching water and watching the ripples and feeling the waves. And there was some kind of a receiving tower going on here. Now that's where I started. Let's see where we're going on. It's cold. This area is very cold and it is desolate. And there's just something is here too. Hills and valleys, desolate. Because of the cold, though, I'm wondering, is that why it's so desolate? Because it's so cold there? This area feels like it is only in communication via remote signals. Again, it is the numbers, the calculations, receiving the number sequences, 9, 7, 11, 94, 63, 32, or binary with binary codes. Does it repeat, I wonder? Does it respond? I wonder. A dual or a duplicity. I have no idea what that means. Beep, 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 sounds and signals. The person racks their brain to make sense of it. Numbers are cold from deep space. Signals, points like a matrix of numbers. I don't want to get them wrong. Don't want to miscalculate. To miscalculate could result in a mistranslation, a missed word, or inappropriate decoding. Cold numbers, cold space, ice, frozen. Solid frozen mass solidified in time. How does it compute, I wonder? How is it measured, I wonder? I have, as an aesthetic, trepidation. There's something here that's iced. I keep seeing someone frozen in a block of ice, suspended in ice. If not actual ice, suspended in time. How does this relate to the target, though, I wonder? The notion of finding something in frozen animation, trapped in an icy time capsule, in a cube, block, or box, like a prison. Is something trapped, though, I wonder? Locked in or stuck in a block of ice like this? And I wonder why. Is it environmental elements? Well, it's cold there. Well, what is inside, I wonder? And there's a structure, very tall, high ceilings, abandoned, like an abandoned military base. There are corridors inside, if not military in nature, then visited or taken over by military. But for what purpose, though, I wonder? Some machinery here, or a cutter, I'm wondering? It reminds me of what would be found on an oil rig. The location feels cold, yet I keep thinking of the Garden of Eden. Well, what about the Garden of Eden, I wonder? The time. Turn of the Ice Age. 12,000-ish years as a time reference. Like an ice age temperature shift. moving landmass, weight distribution, plate tectonics shift. It is this era in time. There is geomagnetic turbulence, even Earth to Moon. There's a magnetic band shifting positions at this location. All of this is calculatable. Each piece is a mathematical position. A man is worried, head in hand. I have a stage 7, which is like I'm hearing somebody speaking. I see something and I need a mathematical proof. If not, it doesn't add up. Another shift in time, I wonder? Garden of Eden reference, I wonder. Does this relate to the target, I question? As a time reference, it does. This feels like the end of Ice Age, 12,000-ish years in the past or more. What is happening here that relates to the target, though, I wonder? Noah's Ark type ideas, an ark. The idea of an ark riding on the electromagnetic band. If not riding it, then within its field. This is a weird place to be. That's an aesthetic impact. Strong electromagnetic fields have powerful effects on the human brain, can make people see things, can cross one's awareness beyond the threshold barrier in these electromagnetic fields. Are those things not there, or are they in the time loop or other dimension? Let me read it again. Are those things not there, or are they in a time loop or other dimension? Who or what is frozen in time here, though, I wondered? Ice, rock, mineral, iron, materials, something stuck, boxed in, partially buried, deep core, abandoned. This is a structure here in this mound.
Very
Abandoned.
important structure. That graphic is very important. And I think one other who shared had a similar image of like the underground chambers within
Daz
the
had
mountain.
that.
Yeah,
was
I had that
Daz.
too.
Yeah, let's keep remembrance of that. I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's
That's all right.
important.
No problem at all. Abandoned by who, though, I wonder? Adamites or the atom. But who is that, I'm wondering? Ice Age era people interacting with Neanderthal type. They bury objects and structures. Either way, it is preserved. What did they do, though, I'm wondering? They abandoned something or a place. Something what, though, I wonder? A message. But what message, I'm wondering? An address, a location, directions, like a map. But a map to what, I question? Not as much a map as a left behind codex. It must be decoded. Well, what is the decoded message, I wonder? Calculations, time, space, speed, solar magnetic calculations. It's physics, readouts, practical use calculations, all in numerical order, like a strange calculator. This target has a lot to do with math, visible and invisible numbers. Well, what is an invisible number, I question? Subspace calculations that only exist during observation. So we observe them, I question? We observe them in motion, radiation, and electricity transmission through the eye. Beyond that, they are invisible numbers. To see this target, this type of observation is required. If not, then it will remain invisible. Can be seen with a modified eye. And this is an eye with some type of contraption connected to it, a spectrometer type component, increasing radiation sensitivity. And that was it.
It's a great session, Edward.
I thoroughly enjoyed that one.
It makes me think about the book of Enoch, wondering if that's like the abyss where they were cast down, if that's what we're dealing with. And the timeline is perfect. And then Göbekli Tepe, I mean, that was buried around then, and it was intentionally buried. So, Raz, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and then we
Y'all
can
are
get to
right
your
on it.
presentation.
Y'all
Yeah.
are right on it. And I will say, it seems like each one of you got a critical piece of, you know, the big phenomena. And I hope I can remember everything. Let me try to share my screen. All right. So you mentioned Enoch. Yeah. I'm gonna kind of talk from two indigenous traditions about this spot. One is the Book of Enoch, because it is a very pivotal place in the Book of Enoch. And the other is, I don't know if you're familiar with Credo Mutwa. He is
he talked about the Chitahori, right?
yes, he was a shaman, Zulu shaman. So he speaks a lot of this region. So I'm going to kind of reference their perspectives on this place. And I think a lot of the correspondences will be obvious. I have my own, I guess, perspectives and opinions on it too, and I'll throw that in, you know, as we go along, you know. So the target is referenced in Enoch first, when as Enoch is being taken on a tour of the underworld. Okay, this target is like the portal to the underworld, and they also call it the cornerstone of the earth, and that's another important reference to it. And that's how, and this is going to tie into the invisible numbers that were just mentioned. You know, these are all of the names that it's referenced as. An opening in the desert, which is the doo-doo well. I can't, let me see. The cornerstone of the earth. A mountain whose summit reaches the heaven. That's very important, right? And this is going to tie into the vortexual energies, particularly what Dad saw. Those vortex points, that ties into this place being the mountain whose summit reaches the heaven. Okay. It's also the mouths where the rivers of the earth. It's like the rivers of the deep of the earth. Enoch also references this place as being that. Okay. So again, geographically, this is Mount Rwenzuri, Mountains of the Moon. It's also known as Mount Hoya. Okay, so now we know Everest is the tallest mountain peak in terms of a mountain having a peak above sea level, right? But when you factor in equatorial bulge of the earth, Mount Rwenzori is like the highest extending point of the planet in terms of the atmosphere, right? And because of this, Mount Rwenzori is the most powerful and influential vortex on planet Earth. It's the first point where the surface of the planet will touch solar ray. It's the closest point on the planet to the ionosphere. And it is also the central radial point for magnetic fields on planet Earth. So we know the North and the South Pole are the polar points for the magnetic fields. Where do they radiate out from? Mount Rwenzori is one of the central radial points for Earth's magnetic field to actually come out of the planet and then, you know, circulate to the poles. So this right, it was called the cornerstone of the earth, right? This relates to it being the original 0, 0 latitude longitude point on the planet. Currently, it's 30 degrees east longitude, 0 degrees latitude, right on the equator, right? But originally, it was before, the Greenwich Meridian was made the prime meridian because of the British Empire. The sun doesn't set on the British Empire. And so the longitudinal orientation of the planet was set at that 30 degree, what was originally 30 degrees west, because it runs, it's a latitude that runs through England, But if you take the Greenwich Meridian down to the equator, you see it's in the middle of the ocean. If you make 30 degrees east the original 0-degree longitude and take that down to the equator, you're at Mount Rwenzuri. So this probably ties into those invisible numbers. And I think numbers came up a couple of times, like the counting of numbers and the repetition of numbers is because this being the cornerstone, the original cornerstone of the planet. This was the 0-0 reference point, And it is the exact degree of longitude that the Giza complex is on. So in other words, if you stand at the Giza complex and just take that straight to the equator, you're at Mount Rwenzuri, So
possibly getting that energy from the planet hits Mount Rwenzuri and then distributes out along that line to the pyramids and then disperses.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how this place ties in with what you would call the global Mound matrix.
Yeah.
This is the prime meridian for the global Mound matrix.
Mm-hmm.
So all pyramids, all mounds globally, this is like their energy grid reference. Original,
Yeah, it's a planetary energy system.
Yes. So
Ed, you had broadcast, right? Edward had some signal coming out of a mountain.
In the very beginning, he had broadcast.
Absolutely,
yep,
absolutely. Yeah, I think that was a theme that came up a couple of times. Naeem spoke on it too, and Daz. So this being this vortex point, this is where you get that reference. Enoch also referred to it as the mouth of all the rivers. This is where you get those great rift lakes that are super deep, kind of coming from, water related to Earth's mantle, Rift lakes just have a very different water source. It's not an accumulation of glacial runoff or rain water. It's actually tectonic plates breaking open and water welling up from within the earth, So it's right near these rift lakes. So yeah, that's kind of the geological significance of this place as it's mentioned to Enoch. And I think Dick, when he was speaking about certain scrolls, ancient scrolls, because again, Enoch passed this area on his way into the underworld. And I guess I should mention, this is a good point to mention this before we get into Credo Mutua, that I think the most significant stuff that happened at this place was subterranean. It might not even be structures. Like, I think that was another theme that I heard consistent throughout the viewers, was that there were these structures and temples. It seemed like some good stuff was happening, but also some weird stuff was happening, throughout different points in time, because some things happened in the inner earth here that really had a profound impact on the trajectory of humanity, us from our, I guess what you would say, Edenic state, kind of living in harmony with ourselves and with nature. But then somehow we got on this crazy technologically driven trajectory. This was a pivotal place. Things that happened here at Rwenzuri kind of put us on this trajectory, you know, a long time ago.
It's like pulling us out of the heart center, right? More into the, as they're going through this genetic manipulation. Is that kind of what you're talking about? How we were kind of heart centered, connected to the land. And then that manipulation happened, the technology influence.
Yeah.
That's where the change and the shift happened.
Yeah. And that's what Credo Mutua chronicles.
Yeah.
You know, and I think this is in Indaba My Children is, you know, you can find this story, but it's like, you know, the spawn of the dragon. I think that's the name of the chapter. But he more or less says that, you know, originally humanity was in a state of oneness and they were known as the Batu at this time. And that this general area, but most of what we would call Central Africa was called Watu Wakele, you know, land of the elders. And that, you know, there came a time during this queen named Marimba that humanity first had to like get weapons and kind of make fortifications. And it wasn't originally against ourselves. It was against these beings that would come out from inside of the earth at this place, at Rwenzuri, you know. And this place was called Lake of the Fallen Stars. So that was so interesting because both Naeem and was it you, Daz, that had this image of almost like an egg shape, something coming out of the heaven and entering the earth at this place? So there is a tradition of that also, okay? And that's tied in with its name being Mountain of the Moon. Okay, I'm not going to get into that, but I did want to just make that connection, you know, and this relates to it being Lake of the Falling Star. And these beings lived in these caves as a result of this craft crashing there. And you know, they appeared as like kind of, you know, inner beast and vipers and serpents and all of that, but they could take human form. And at times they would come up, kidnap a bunch of humans and take them back into the earth, you know. Some were eaten, but then some were like mutated, right? So then Credo says, eventually another race of humanity appeared on the face of the earth. It was like humans were brought down in the inner earth at this place, manipulated. Their genes were manipulated. So now these humans were much, much taller. And I guess you would say this is how Credo accounts for the genetic difference on who we would call the Bantu speakers, right? Versus the Neolithic Africans, who would be like the Bantus are primarily agriculturalists. The Neolithic are pastoralists, you know? And go ahead.
I was just is this kind of like what Enoch talks about with the sons of God into the daughters of men, making that change, you know, crossbreeding humanity and then teaching them all the different, you know, weapons and everything, changing the culture, which ties into all the data they were bringing back too as well.
Exactly. So my opinion, this is why, to just tie it in, this is why I said, hey, check out this target, because my opinion is that happened. That manipulation that's accounted for in Enoch, that happened here, Mount Rwenzuri, you know? And yeah, this is where these Neolithic Africans who are very distinct genetically from the Bantus in height, is like, again, as well as their cultural practices. This is, you know, and they call their lord who lives in this structure, this like subterranean structure at this place, Nangai. And I think Nangai is the Sumerian Enki, is the Egyptian or Kemetic Ptah. Okay. But like this is like his spot. You know, this is Nangai lives and dwells in a subterranean structure right below this most important vortex center of the earth, you know? So I think that's that's kind of a good overview of what I know of as that spot being, you know.
Yeah, that was excellent. It connected a lot of dots, and I think it ties in a lot of the data that the viewers pulled back from the manipulation. You're still sharing, Roz. If you want to just stop your screen share.
Yeah, let me see.
Let's see if I can do it.
Yeah,
What
I got to figure it out.
Viewing, Roz, is in most cases when you give a project like this to a group of remote viewers, there's what we call division of effort. So different viewers will get different aspects of the target. They will kind of, in a subconscious agreement without themselves knowing it, divide it up like, okay, you get the past history, the people, you get the energy, you get the land. So if you look at all of our work, it seems like it meshes into a pretty coherent depiction of what you presented.
Absolutely. You know, y'all were on it. Salute. Yeah, I see a lot of synchronicities. I hope I made all the connections that came to my mind as I listened to.
The opening slide that you showed is exact the image that Naeem drew as his first image. He drew that mountain exactly.
Yeah. Yes.
It's interesting you said Credo Mutwa. Didn't he say in one of his interviews that he got taken into a mountain and got some kind of surgery done on him?
Yes.
Yeah, that was interesting because after I did the session, like I had Africa and I got Africa in the session, and I saw that surgery and I was thinking, I was like, hey, that story. So it's funny that it actually ties into the stuff he was thinking about. So pretty mind blown there.
David Icke does a really extensive interview with Credo Mutwa and does a great job presenting his story and his data and how that ties into a lot of the global power structure as it applies to us today. And then, I'd also reference the Terra Papers that's covered by Robert Morningsky, because I think he gives even more of the backstory as to how they got here. And it's highly relevant. And as you said, Roz, there's multiple stories that are telling the same story. I think they all give a piece to it. And you did a great job tying the Book of Enoch into this. Great feedback. Any comments from our viewers? Let's go real quick, get our viewers' feedback. Naeem, I have you on camera already. Anything else you want to say? I don't know if you're frozen or not.
Really interesting target. Just like deep historical stuff, and all of us had very, very similar data overlapping in certain spots. And for me doing this, when that happens, usually there's something to it. So very, very, very interesting project and a pleasure to work on that.
Thanks, Naeem. Daz, what's your thoughts on it?
First, I just want to say thanks to Raz for the feedback. That's fantastic, and for the target. Yeah, I find it really interesting because I've read a multitude of books over the years talking about how human existence was probably seeded by other beings, and how you can trace this through arcane roots of history of man and religion and all kinds of beliefs and systems. So yeah, it's interesting to see how that kind of works within that location. And I didn't know much about that mountain before, and we've all probably looked at it and did a little bit of research since. And to me, it looks like the perfect kind of location for some kind of remote kind of outpost for some kind of, I don't know, I don't want to call them alien race, but non-physical kind of, beings to do whatever they want to do. We already know that, from other remote viewing and other sources that there's definitely those kind of facilities in Africa. So yeah, it's really interesting. I really liked it. On, and it'd be great as well to see what Raz, if he has all this data off of us, if he wants to incorporate it and do some more research and see where this maybe goes in a year or two's time or something.
Yes, you triggered something else I did want to speak on. Who was it that spoke on seeing somebody trapped in like a time cube?
Edward had the ice and Dick had the man stuck in a wall.
Right. So now that being, Nangai, Inky, Ptah, right? He is supposedly trapped in the underworld. Okay.
He got cast into the abyss, correct?
Cast into the abyss, imprisoned in the underworld, right? And this is like, again, this location is where it went down. And that subterranean chamber is connected to that also. Okay, so that was something else I wanted to make sure we mentioned,
Looks like a great place to visit one day.
Now, believe it or not, I have met one person who said they have been to this place. And his name is Cha Now. He even wrote a book about it called It's Time to Get in Touch. This guy, and you know what? And I met him in like the early 2000s. And like if someone could, I would think it would be kind of hard to really disappear in 2021. But this guy has really just disappeared, dropped off. Like like where is he? It's a mystery. Yeah. But yeah, his story is interesting. I don't think we have enough time today, but if we ever explored it again, it would be relevant to hear what he had to say about the journey to get there, and then what he found. He said he got inside the inner temples there, the subterranean temples, and that there were these like beings of flash lightning that if they interacted, it would set off lightning within the cave. It's a very fascinating account.
Sounds like what Dick was reporting.
Yes, that's why I wanted to mention that as well.
Dick, any final thoughts on this target?
Thanks for giving us that briefing, Ross. It's great to meet you. Really interesting stuff. That was an interesting target. I really got the humanity involved with it. So it's great to see. When we do this remote viewing, we just go into a state where images and data come to us, and we record it without really comprehending it. And like in the case of this one, we had forgotten much of our data. We did this like 2-3 months ago. Right. So to go back and revisit it and then see your presentation is really interesting. So thank you so much. It's great to work with you.
This was fun. Give thanks.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Edward, let's get your final thoughts on this. How are you feeling about the target and the feedback?
Great. Just a great target and great debrief as well. Filling a lot of those gaps. Great place to go and experience that Garden of Eden level with the plate tectonics, the energy there, and the things that are associated with that location, it was a really great place to go and hang out. But I have one image here for Raz. This is from a previous session, but you may like this drawing. There's our guy right there. That's Pata.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was Gene Roddenberry, right?
That was the Roddenberry.
The Roddenberry session. That was a great session.
But, yeah, I'm familiar with the P-Man. So thank you very much for the target and the debrief, man. I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you.
No worries.
Great session by everybody, Raz. Our thanks to you for providing the target and providing such detailed feedback. I think everything fit nicely. As we're continuing to piece this together, I feel that over time we've been getting targets that keep telling us a little bit more of this story, and I think that somehow that's important for us to really understand our past. We have to understand where we came from so we can better chart the waters as to where we're going. And this is a very important piece of that story, I think, that we're getting kind of reinforced and reaffirmed. So excellent job by everybody. Raz, I'll leave it to you. First of all, if you want, why don't you give people information on how they can find you and find your work, people that want more.
RasBen.com, one-stop shop.
It is.
ASBEN.com.
Okay.
And I do have a YouTube channel, Ras Ben 188, and I might post a video before I update my website. So like if you want to see my latest and greatest, just subscribe to Ras Ben 188 and make sure you click the notification. They definitely shadow ban me and don't put out the notifications when I post videos. So just keep checking in occasionally.
I think shadow banning is par for the course in this line of work, Ron. So
yeah,
we understand. Okay. Yeah. Well, great session. Again, thank you to everybody involved. And that's going to do it for this one. So on behalf of Daz, Dick, Edward, Naeem, Raz, and the rest of the Crypto Viewing team, I'm Dennis Snappy II. Thanks for watching.
All right. Peace.
Thanks, guys.